Hello, welcome to the Lobby Gamers. I'm Executive Chief Dudeman Officer Matt Weber, and this is also Executive Chief Dudeman Officer Luis Contreras.
Hello, salutations from Japan.
Boy, do we have a lineup of games for you all today, don't we, Luis?
That's right, Matt. We can barely contain our excitement to make money sell a soulless, share these beautiful artistic games. Definitely not made by AI.
Absolutely. Now, please enjoy the first game in our presentation.
In the kingdom of Succuba, a warrior is chosen by fate, overcoming all odds in the face of pure evil. Join Lance as he embarks on an epic adventure to stop the Kimika Zaibatsu. But you won't be alone. With the help of your family, your friends, and the kingdom itself. Save Succuba by expanding your farms and maybe find time for romance. Join us in this epic story, 25 years in the making.
Fantasy Sword Persona Senpai 9/8 3/4 Tamagotchi 3 Complete Edition.
This time, there will be blood.
You guys ready? Lobby up.
Hey guys, lobby up.
GG's, lobby up.
Dude, we gotta lobby up.
Lobby up.
Hey, should we lobby up?
Yo, lobby up.
Lobby up, y'all.
Hey, let's grab a beer. Lobby up.
Welcome everyone to another episode. You've got Matt and Luis in the lobby.
How's it going, guys?
Today we're going to be discussing a topic that affects all gamers, and that is the media that brings gaming news to you. And this can take, obviously, a multitude of different forms, whether this is a big announcement from the developers themselves or your favorite podcasters. Hello.
What's up?
So let's talk about the king, the OG that everybody really knows, even though they're not quite with us anymore. But that's E3. When I think of, I don't know about you, dude, but like when I think about announcing games, E3 just comes to mind.
Dude, E3 was a magical time in the gaming world. I think that we definitely took it for granted. After a while, it's just like, oh, here comes another E3. Here I go. I'm going to be disappointed again because I'm not going to see F-Zero. You know what I mean? Like, but now that it's gone, it's just like, man, like E3 is sorely missed, and the hype behind it, and from the best moments that you can think of to the hilariously cringy moments.
Yes.
It's something that this new generation of gamers are just not going to be able to appreciate because it's
Right.
never going to happen to that capacity again. I feel that everything is very scripted now to avoid these like cringy mishaps, and it's sad, really, because it was the charm of E3.
You're touching on a funny subject because it's like the scripting almost makes it cringy still anyway. So like
Yeah, that's true.
you know, just having an authentic experience is so few and far in between nowadays. But I do agree. I think that like the people who never got to know E3 never got to anticipate the games that they really want to be announced when all of these developers show up and you're like, oh man, okay, here's the moment. Am I gonna get my game? And then, like you said, being let down, like or the crazy moment, not expecting an announcement and then getting it and not knowing it's what you wanted. So, dude, like what's coming? I can see it on your face. Like, what's coming to mind for you right now?
Honestly, dude, my face is just glowing with excitement. I'm so stoked just to talk about, as much as I want to talk about the best parts and all like the crazy hype, the cringe. Dude, I'm so ready for the cringe, man. But before I can possibly get into the cringe, I got to ask, what was the first E3 that you kind of remember, like the earliest, like I'm not looking for exact dates, but like what's one of your earliest memories of E3?
I can't really say like what my first memory is, but some of my first memories date back to like things that you would just see in media popping up and be like, oh, that was at E3. For example, when Sony first announced the PlayStation, and I think the Sega Saturn was going to be projected to be $399, and like the Sony exec walks up and he literally just goes $299. And like that's it, and like walked away. It was like a mic drop, and that was like back in the 90s. Answering your question, like that's like the earliest one of like a notable moment that I remember being a thing. But like probably one of the first E3s that I really, and this is just kind of like a funny moment, one of the first E3s that I really like started getting involved with gaming news and thinking about how the market is and stuff was in 2013 when the Xbox One was announced. And dude, there's some crazy topics there. One of the funniest moments about that was when Xbox originally was proposing a game sharing fee. And and Sony came back. Yeah, you already know where I'm going with this.
So my Xbox heart is just like thumping right now.
Yeah, dude. And they're like talking about how you're gonna have to pay a fee to like, and there's like this crazy process, and they had like a step-by-step process. And Sony execs released a 30-second video. It was detailing how to share PlayStation games with your friends, and it was like step 1. And then like the Sony exec hands a game over, and he's like, "Thanks," and then it just ends the video.
No, it's like PlayStation.
PlayStation. Yeah.
Dude, that was the beginning of the end for Xbox's hold in the gaming industry for a long time.
Right.
It didn't take, I believe that they started repairing that E3 debacle with the Xbox Series X. I think that's when things started kind of going uphill for them.
Right.
But they've been like at the bottom of that hill ever since, man. And that's just how powerful E3 can be for these industries.
Yeah,
you know,
you're absolutely right.
Back then, for you youngins, E3 is where you would bring your A game. Like if you didn't show up to E3, or if you had a weak E3 presentation, you were ostracized for like for the rest of the year.
Oh yeah, because you're literally there stacked up against your actual competitors. So everyone is directly comparing what you brought to your competitors. I mean, it's just you, like you said, you have to bring the best of the best. You can't hold any stops. So if you show up and like you clearly tried your best and you're clearly not stacking up to the rest, it's so easy for the market to just shift away from you.
Yeah, and it made the company or it broke the company. I mean, that's where Sega announced the Sega Saturn that it was dropping that same day. And all the gaming retailers were just like, what? Like, we don't even have these in stock. And people were coming to these, to like EB Games, to KP Toys, to Kmart,
Toys R Us,
and like, where's my Sega Saturn? And they're like, bro, we don't even have them yet. That was an announcement at E3. That's how many people were watching that and like ready to jump at any sort of anything, really, any sort of announcement, any sort of that shadow drop. Arguably ruined Sega, and that took place at E3, man. I can't overstate the importance of that trade show, man.
Absolutely. And like you were talking about, you know, this is one of the biggest events of the year, so you had to bring your A game. And the thing is, there weren't other forms of media, and that's kind of like what we're talking about today, is that there's so many forms of media. It's so easy for people to announce something here and discuss something on this different platform, and it makes sense. This was the one like piece de resistance. You looked forward to it all year long. So yeah, but like you said, man, there's crazy good moments, and then there's cringe moments.
So, dude, the one that comes to mind, I'm gonna start with the cringe because I've been waiting for that. I will never forget the E3 presentation where they brought out Wii Music, and you just saw a bunch of Nintendo executives just like on the stage pretending to play music on the Wii remotes. It was the cringiest thing, and I must have been like, I must have been a preteen at that point, or pretty close to being a teenager. So I'm already angsty as hell. And it's just like seeing these losers, and I'm just like, I'm gonna throw my Wii away. Like I'm gonna throw it away. I don't want this. I look like a loser now for owning this freaking console. And they put this piece of software on a pedestal. This was their main game for that presentation. This was supposed to like be the crowd pleaser, wow moment, and it just fell flat on their face. And
Yes.
especially growing up, I was always looking at the Nintendo presentations. Of course, I was looking at the Xbox as well, but nowhere near as Nintendo. And there will be a theme throughout this episode. I was normally there for the Nintendo stuff, never for the PlayStation stuff, and somewhat there for the Xbox stuff. But I think that day I became more of an Xbox fanboy because of that presentation.
And you're bringing up a really good point, because this probably is one of the moments where it marks in gaming history where Nintendo as a company, all gamers kind of view them as off on their side quests. You have Xbox and PlayStation being like these main powerhouse consoles, and then Nintendo is just like, nah, you know, we don't really care about the power and stuff. We just want to have fun. And that's great. We love them for that. But like, it started with the Wii. It really did.
That's where I would say that's where gamers started seeing them as the children's console.
Yes. And so that's when you have people starting to make fun of them, and not rightfully so, because the thing is, the game library on the Wii, even the Wii U, and especially the Switch, have been amazing. Just absolutely banger catalogs full of awesome, fun games. But they're not going to be able to continue that competition with Xbox and PlayStation. So I think that when they notice things like this happening, they lean into it more as they progress like toward the Switch. So in these E3 moments, I think that's one of those defining moments for them.
For sure. And honestly, the Wii, as much as it was seen as the children's console, they wound up outselling both of them.
Yep.
They outsold Xbox, they outsold PlayStation. That Wii was a monster hit.
Yep.
And it was because of the, it brought generations together to a video game console, which you'll have to see. But that E3 presentation was awful. But on the same token, you get these amazing moments that they had, man. And again, going with Nintendo, I'll get my Xbox stuff in a little while, but again, because I wasn't really with the PlayStation fans.
Right.
But as cringy as that Wii thing was, man, that's not even the cringiest thing that I remember. This is infamous, and if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. Please, after this, just look up the Konami presentation E3.
Tell us about it, bro.
It is one of the most, bro. It is like a fever dream. It doesn't make sense. It looks like someone, and this is before the age of AI, just someone put in Konami E3 presentation into like freaking Chat GPT, and it spewed this out. Bro, there was wrestlers slapping each other. There was this I don't remember the exact games, but there was a director that comes out and was making like, Japanese is his first language, English is his second, so he's making these weird, cringe, sexual jokes. It was, bro, I cannot do it justice how out there this presentation was. It made the movie The Room look like a masterpiece of like pacing and cinema, because this just did it, bro. It is a fever dream. It's a fever dream. Look it up, man. Look it up.
Man, yeah, I haven't seen that, so I'm gonna have to look into that.
Please do it.
What do you know like how long ago that was from?
Yeah, dude, that was E3 2010.
Okay.
And it was just one thing after another. Like, right when you think you know what's gonna happen, they would just like pivot in the most crazy direction. There was awkward pauses. They would make a joke and wait for the audience to laugh, and literally nobody laughed. And they were just staring at the presenters, like waiting for them to continue. And then they would like retell the joke to try to get a laugh, and no one would laugh a second time. Matt, please, that is my like cringiest thing. I got to see that live. That's how and I still can't comprehend what I saw to this day. It's
you sure you
2024.
weren't sick while you were watching it?
Dude, I may have been. I thought, dude, for the longest time I thought that was a dream until I like saw it again recently, and I'm just like, holy crap, this is an actual thing that happened. Like, it was peak E3 cringe, and I promise you, Matt, you will never see this again in your entire life, like live.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look that up today.
I think that they do these pre-recorded presentations because of this.
So on the flip side of like if that was trying too hard to be funny, I think sometimes game studios try too hard to be relatable, And I think that like when it comes to the one of the last E3s that happened, actually, I think it was the last in-person one. Maybe this is part of why this is the last in-person E3. But in 2019, when they were talking about Cyberpunk and Keanu Reeves came up on stage and said Cyberpunk like 40 times, that to me just like it was just like an example of how we just like take celebrities and throw them into things, because executives they're so out of touch with reality. They're like yeah, we should definitely have Chris Pratt as Mario. Like everyone is going to love that. Like Chris Pratt, everyone's favorite celebrity. It's just gonna make so much money. And like I think that we're getting to a point in society with games and all these different forms of gaming media where celebrities are like, yeah, I can sell my likeness and my voice and make so much money, and we just accept it. Like we're cool with this now, I guess. I think it's so weird. It's just weird to me.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Sometimes I feel like we have these celebrities when we can have these trained professional voice actors
Yes.
doing this stuff.
Exactly. Like somebody who's been in the business for, someone who's become a celebrity because of his expertise, like Mark Hamill. There's a reason that he is sought after for voice acting. It's because he's really amazing at it and he can
Yes.
do so many different things. But like, that's only an example of somebody who's a celebrity who's also a good voice actor. Just having a celebrity in there to have a celebrity doesn't make sense to me.
No, and this seems to be a trend that's going to keep happening, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Like Nicolas Cage being in things. Like why are we putting Nicolas Cage in games?
I mean, I'm kind of cool with that.
You're part of the problem, Lewis. But I know we've been kind of shitting on
Yeah.
E3's moments, but we do need to talk about some of the amazing moments. So what's your favorite E3 moment of good moments?
So I can't narrow them down. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. There, some of these moments that I'm gonna bring up are in no particular order because the way they made me feel at the time was just like unmatched. The first one that comes to mind is the legendary reveal of Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Yes.
Just thinking about it right now, I have chills to my bone. It was electrifying, and it was actually one of the first E3s that I saw live, and granted, as live as I could get it back then, because I mean I didn't go to E3, but I got it for like real time from the computer. I was like looking up the YouTube videos. I think it was probably announced, then posted on YouTube like a day later, and then I saw it, and like I was hyped to no end because at that time we were coming off of Wind Waker, and Wind Waker was great. It was, in retrospect, it's one of the best Zelda games ever made, but
it was such a stark difference from the games that they had just created prior.
Absolutely. So it's like, yes, it was great. We all ate our words, because everyone's like, oh, a cartoon. Like, we want gritty, edgy Legend of Zelda. And we did. We got emo. Like, we got the emo-centric Green Day-inspired Twilight Princess. And the crowd reaction was amazing. Shigeru Miyamoto coming out with the Legend of Zelda Sword and Shield, like with the biggest grin on his face. And then it's like, they just bombarded you with so much information. You got Link turning into a wolf, looking at Midna for the first time, this imp-looking creature with this crazy edgy helmet, Link looking beautiful, the music, the score, and just like the epic ending where he's just like, Epona's on her two hind legs and he has his sword in the air on the bridge. Dude, it's one of those moments that I will, and not to be dramatic, but it's one of those moments that I'm going to look back as an old man and be like, holy cow, I got to be in that same space at the same time. I could have been born after that, and thank God I wasn't, because I got to live that and see that as a young kid, and it just blew my ever-loving mind, dude.
And those are the moments that like you keep watching E3 every year for, hoping, because you had no idea that was going to be announced. Like, it just got dropped on you. It just was there, and you had there's no like tweets, there's no lead up, there's no leaks, there's nothing going on to even prepare you. You just see a Nintendo executive walk up on stage, and then they just shove this amazing game into your face. It's
And
an unparalleled experience.
And it's sad that I wish I could have seen that live, but back then there was no streaming. We're talking
Right.
about dial-up internet. I believe that was 2004. So like most people didn't have broadband yet, if you know what that is. I saw it as quickly as I could have possibly have seen it at the time. Like, because back then they would record the show and then post the snippets on, like IGN would post it on their YouTube channel back then.
Yeah.
And back then I wasn't allowed to use YouTube on the computer because we thought it would give viruses. So I was on this website called Meta Cafe, and that's where I would get my IGN stuff, dude. That's a throwback, dude. But
That's crazy.
wish I could have been there.
Bro, you've got me on what I kept coming back year after year after year, foaming at the mouth for E3 on, and that is being a Kingdom Hearts fan. And
Ooh.
bro, when I say that my Google search terms would peak for Kingdom Hearts in like the weeks leading up to E3, hoping, just mouth watering, drooling for some sort of Kingdom Hearts information, bro, I spent like a good like half a decade just waiting. And that was because like even before 2013, when it got first announced with like an official announcement, I was still just waiting because 2006 I believe was when Kingdom Hearts 2 came out. So the game's sequel, the official like actual sequel, not a spin-off, but actual sequel, didn't even get announced till 7 years later, and then didn't even get released until 6 years after that. So it was just like constantly hoping, constantly watching for this E3 announcement and being let down year after year. Like 2013, they released this trailer of you fighting the Rock Titan and you're super hyped, and then all of a sudden like execs are like, maybe this was a little too early, and then finding out that they had to like restart the development halfway through.
Yeah.
And 2017, finally at E3, seeing Square Enix go up on stage and be like, coming 2018, and then just finally having a date, and then that getting pushed back.
Dude, being a Kingdom Hearts fan was like being a masochist at that point, dude. You guys were just a glutton for, I think I literally told you that. I remember that. I'm like, dude, you guys are just a glutton for punishment at this point. You
Yes.
guys are getting just trolled at this point.
I have severe emotional damage. It was a big part of my memory for E3 because not knowing what you're going to get, like we talked about with this Zelda announcement, not knowing what's going to be there and still trying to tune in, still trying to hope and watch and get that announcement. That was something that I can't really fully describe, like the anticipation and then the payoff, the sheer overwhelming dopamine release after I finally get a release date window. You know, that was all brought from E3. So
Yes.
that's when I think of E3 personally, I think of finally getting Kingdom Hearts 3.
And that's such a good memory too. And again, for those listening who didn't get to experience E3, that anticipation was brutal because you
Yes.
wouldn't get it throughout the year. You would have to wait till
No.
the summer every year to get a good release. And sometimes they'll release it on their own merits, like at different conventions throughout the country. But
Right.
E3 was a spot. Halo 3, dude. Halo 3 was one of my most anticipated games of all time.
Yes.
And when they dropped that trailer in 2006, dude, my 6th grade self just almost bursted into a million tears. It was the most beautiful, epic trailer I had seen up until that point, man. I was sorry, I'm getting emotional over here. Like, because it really
it brings back
does.
so many good memories, so many
Yeah.
good feelings, right? And on one hand, you know, it's so great to look back, and it's almost kind of sad that like those kind of moments won't really be happening again, especially from E3, because as we now know, it has had its last virtual one in 2021, last physical E3 in 2019. I guess COVID was kind of like that last push for making this kind of obsolete in a way.
Yeah.
Especially because we're getting this type of news from other outlets. But big highlight here for E3 is that in its own right, in its own way, it was just kind of like this anticipatory showcase of crazy moments, and the history of E3 just repeats that theme.
Yeah, for sure. And I like to think that because of E3, these new presentations that we're getting, whether it's a keynote or an awards show or whatever, the spirit of E3 is somewhere in there. And I'd like to believe that there's somebody out there, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, that's looking at the game show awards or looking at these keynotes and feel something. I hope so, because I think that's what keeps the gaming industry alive. I
Right.
think these think of the kids. I think these kids, the future of gaming and what's going to push us moving forward. I hope that they're getting an emotional response from these games, and maybe it's not from us anymore. And listen, whether it's Fortnite or Minecraft or Roblox, whatever, I hope that they get these crazy announcements that are making them foam at the mouth, that are
Right.
making them excited to play video games. Because
Right.
if that dies in this new generation, I feel that the gaming industry will crumble on itself.
Right.
And I full heartedly believe that. Call me dramatic, but I do believe that.
Well, because that's the thing is games are something that we all enjoy here. And so you're building the hype about something that we already love, that we're already anticipating, and that we want. So the hype is part of it. How you present something, it's the same reason that we have packaging that looks better than the stuff that's inside it, because
Yep.
it's a big part of it. So that's why, even though this type of showcase may have died, there are other ways that this news gets dispersed. So when you have specific developers like Nintendo who made the Direct, and there's a form before that back in the 90s, right, that they used to do before the Directs.
So Nintendo has always been a really good pioneer of presenting their games in the way that current generation needs it to be presented. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
So back then they had their own E3 style trade show. It was called Nintendo Space World. And I got to follow that as well. Back in my day, I didn't have YouTube, so I would type in Nintendo Space World. That is keyword at AOL. AOL keyword
Oh my gosh.
Nintendo Space World, and that's where I would get my Nintendo news. That is my earliest memory of following the gaming industry in some capacity. So it started in 1999 at the schools. We would have access to the computers at the library. I didn't have a computer in my house until later on in like 2003. So like going to the library was how I would get my gaming news, and I would type in the keyword Space World, and I would see the Ultra 64. It wasn't the Nintendo 64, it was the Ultra 64. I would see the early developments of GameCube. I saw the tech demo have you seen the tech demo of Link and Ganondorf fighting?
No.
So it's this old tech demo, and it looks good by today's standards. It was Link and Ganondorf fighting, and this is post Ocarina of Time, and it looks so good, so real, and it's supposed to show what the GameCube can do. And that's why the hype for the next Zelda game post Majora's Mask was so high, and it was supposed to look gritty and realistic, because that's the tech demo we saw.
Gotcha.
Then we get Wind Waker, and we're just like, what is this? So all that to say, Nintendo was always a pioneer on that. So
Right.
they were the first to move to these keynote directs, going streaming directly to you from
Right.
YouTube, from Twitter, wherever you consume your media online. And then I believe, this is my humble opinion, I believe that was the beginning of the end for E3, because the other companies saw, hey, we don't need E3 to present our games. Just like
Right.
Nintendo in 2001 are like, we don't need Nintendo Space World, we got E3. Later on, Nintendo's like, well, we don't need E3, we have our Nintendo Directs. And they don't have to wait every single summer to get gaming news. We can now present it to you whenever we feel like it.
Right, exactly. So now in this sense, you first and foremost, as a cost effectiveness, you cut out the middleman of having to depend on a third party in order to share news about your games. So as a developer and a publisher, Nintendo no longer had to wait for them to set the timeline. They could literally post news whenever they wanted.
Yep.
And that benefits everybody, honestly, well, except E3. But it
Yeah.
benefits it benefits Nintendo, and it benefits gamers, because if you want to release Pokemon news at the beginning of the year instead of wait till summer, you can. If you want to post news about the new Super Mario Wonder at the end of summer, you can. And it makes sense. Instead of announcing something the summer of the year before the game comes out, you can actually control the hype cycle. You can control the marketing for your game. It only makes sense, which is why PlayStation inevitably copied them.
Dude, that was a weird time. Listen, Nintendo doesn't have ownership of keynote presentations,
For sure.
but they did it first. They did it first.
And it's more so and I'm admitting this as somebody who's been a long-term like PlayStation fan. It's more so the style of how they did it. Like it literally looks like they both created like a PowerPoint presentation of recordings of themselves talking about their games and then inserted videos of like trailers of gameplay footage and stuff.
Yeah.
So like it's basically that they basically one for one adapted directs for the state of play. So who's to say like what the correct way to have gone about that was, but it's just funny because of the history between Nintendo and PlayStation that like you can't help but poke fun at it.
For those who don't know, Sony has this reputation of like copying Nintendo's homework all the time. It was really noticeable during the Wii era when they were using the motion controls and stuff.
Right.
And then now we're talking modern day with Foam Star and Splatoon, and then the Nintendo Direct, and it wasn't even called the PlayStation Direct, and the internet literally dubbed it the PlayStation Direct.
Because that's basically what it's like. And also it's just easier to say direct.
True.
It's more direct. State of play. I mean, I don't know. That's like they adopted some of Xbox's naming schemes.
Oh God. Let's not go there.
But on the topic of Xbox, it's like, at least, yes, hilarious that they copied the same format, but at least they are doing it. They're doing something to try to communicate with their player base. We don't really have that from Xbox. We don't really know what to expect on a yearly basis when we're looking at like when Nintendo drops a tweet that says Nintendo Direct coming on January 31st. Like, that day you gotta like set that time aside because the internet's gonna blow up, and whatever they just announced, you better watch it live. Otherwise, you're gonna be seeing everybody else's comments and opinions about it before you even get to make your own. So that's the thing. We don't even have that from Xbox. Like, we don't have that like whatsoever. So it's like I don't really know what the future is gonna hold for that. And I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that there is something missing there.
So they did start doing some more direct stuff. Like I know they just had the developers direct. That's where we got Indiana Jones and we got Avowed and we got a couple other games there. And that was really well received because of Indiana Jones. That was the highlight of it. So it looks like they're going to start doing the developer direct. And
is it called developer direct?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, screw it. They're gonna call it Xbox Direct anyways. Might as well lean into that. But it looks like Xbox is still doing the trade shows. So like you see them at Gamescom, you see them at PAX East, you see them there, and those trade shows are streamed on the internet. So like you get to see their presentations there instead of a Xbox Direct that comes from them. You see it through a third party basically. So it's like, let me tune into PAX East and see what's going on. And Xbox is having their presentation today. Let me tune in. Versus today, we're going to post in 3 days, we're going to have an Xbox Direct. Again, it looks like they are starting to do that, but it took them long enough. It took them I think they're like 5 years late on that.
Yeah, and like you said, they're in this generation kind of like making repairs from like the mistakes of the Xbox One. So I think that we can expect them to make these types of good decisions, and rightfully so, because again, the merit of having a direct line of communication with your player base so that way they can get hyped, you control the marketing, you control the hype cycle, it makes sense.
Speaking of controlling the hype, I gotta say that Nintendo's Directs have been a masterclass of hype. Just seeing a Nintendo Direct is going to be presented in 3 days, you get super stoked as it is, not knowing what's going to happen. And I think that's super important to keep, like I said, keep that energy alive of being hype and these games delivering. I'll be honest, man, it's 2024. The last time I can remember being so hyped that I audibly yell and I have a genuine emotional response and I feel like a kid again, that came from a Nintendo Direct. And I believe that this Nintendo Direct fell in the E3 category it was E3, but it was a pre-recorded Nintendo Direct like presentation. And that was the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Everybody's
Ah,
Here trailer.
yes. What an epic moment, dude.
It was mind-blowing. It made me feel like I was 10 years old. I had a huge emotional response to the Super Smash Brothers Brawl trailer.
Right.
That was an E3 presentation, and I was like blown away by all these new characters coming into Brawl. And that same energy, that same love, that same hype was triple fold in the Ultimate trailer. And I remember sitting on the couch with my wife watching this on TV. At this point, she's my wife. This is how old I am. I have a wife. I'm living by myself in an apartment. I'm a grown man. And this trailer drops that Everybody's Here. And I literally looked over to my wife and I'm like, everybody's here! Like freaking out. Like I jumped off the couch, hands over my head, just yelling that everybody's here to the sky. I was so stoked. Just go on YouTube and type in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate reactions, and you're gonna see genuine emotional
Right.
responses to this trailer. This isn't the streamer hype, the let me play it
No.
up for the camera. There's
Right.
people crying on camera just from how beautiful this moment is. And the reason I bring this up is because I wholeheartedly believe that these keynote events, these directs, play a state of play, Xbox developer directs can still do what E3 can do, and that's cause an
Right.
emotional response, cause hype, get people excited to be a gamer. The only thing they need to do is deliver, and Ultimate delivered. Ultimate wound up delivering. That's the only thing that this industry needs. Like, get the hype in, deliver what you're hyping up, and these directs can still give us that hype that E3 did. And I hope that they can keep doing this going into the future.
Absolutely, dude. And I mean, like, when it comes to these direct state of plays, showcases, the only waiting you now have to do is to have that moment. Whenever it's announced that they're going to be having this direct line of communication with you, it may be something that you're going to have an emotional response to, it may not. And that for me is a similarity to E3, because I was waiting and waiting to get what I wanted. And it was year after year, but now it's just direct to direct. So, and
Yes.
you get multiple in a year. So it's like you never know when you're going to get hit with that. So they still have the opportunity to create that there. But nowadays, there are so many different forms of media in which we get gaming news, in which developers choose to release trailers for their games. And one of the most notable recently was the Game Awards that happened in December. Because I don't know about you, but when I think of like an awards show, I think of like this long process giving out like, kudos to all the amazing projects of the year, whether that's like the Oscars or Tonys or whatever. The Game Awards, like in our episode, we were like, this is the Oscars of gaming, right?
Yes.
And then literally about 90% of or more of the actual time that you're watching the Game Awards was trailers and game announcements. And sometimes to a fault, they would just skip right over and through some of the awards.
Yeah.
So, you think about how an awards show is getting changed by this shift in the market, by having E3 be officially dead. Now there's this opportunity, so to speak, for these types of announcements to be divulged in a different media. And a lot of people have some mixed feelings about that.
For sure. I mean, I've gotten to see the Game Awards kind of evolve throughout the years. I was an early adopter. I've been watching since 2014. That was the first Game Awards, and I've seen every single year since. And slowly it's turning into a mini E3.
Right.
And what I saw this year was a little sad because they almost have it. But the little time that they gave the developers and the award winners was atrocious, really. And it's like, for what?
Yeah.
To skip to Farm Simulator 3 or to skip
Yes.
to like
Another
just-
Monster Hunter game. That was like
Yeah.
the big reveal, and I was like, yeah, I'm glad that people who love Monster Hunter are
I
going
was
to
gonna say, be careful.
Well,
be careful what you say. We're gonna get burned at the stake.
But that's the thing, man, is like I don't know. I guess like for me, I would feel the same way if there was like a big Pokemon game announced. Like I would feel the same way if there was like a Zelda game announced at the end there, because it's like that's not appropriate for me. I think
Yeah.
that like if we're gonna talk about game awards, this felt like more like a sellout. This felt more like, okay, anybody who wants to buy some time within this 3 hour slot, and then like whoever can pay the most gets the last slot.
Yes.
I got a really bad feeling in my stomach about it, and I felt weird coming out of that, like seeing some of the announcements. In my mind, some of them it made sense for them to be there and be announced at that time, and some of them it didn't.
So was that your first was this year your first game awards, or have you
No.
seen them throughout? When did
No, I've watched them for a long time. Probably, I don't know, like probably later 20 teens. One of the more notable ones I really remember was like the year that Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of
Oh
War were
yeah.
duking it out. And I remember my wife being like super let down because she's a huge Red Dead fan. But yeah, like I remember like that was one of the more significant ones that I really remember in my mind. But I probably like really started paying attention to them probably like later 20 teens.
Fair. And it used to be the opposite. So the complaints used to be like, I'm bored. Like it's all about the game awards, and it's like, well, it's the game awards.
The
It's
Game
like
Awards.
it's like going to the Oscars and being like, oh my god, another
Are
award.
they just gonna talk about how good actors did this year? It's like, yeah, like that's what this is about.
But we're gamers and we have short attention spans, so it's
Yeah.
like you need that constant dopamine hit of reveal after reveal and hype after hype, and it went overboard this year.
Yeah.
And I feel to the point that some of the games that were presented were kind of overshadowed by the fact that these people aren't getting their time in the limelight.
Yes.
So like last year, Christopher Judge, he spent like 10 minutes having a speech, an acceptance speech. It was crazy long. And I believe that that speech by itself made the overcorrection this year.
Yeah.
And it was too much of an overcorrection. And
Yeah.
people like you and I, by extension as well, like I didn't feel as bad to be honest, but I know a good group of people like hated that so much that some people don't even want to watch next year's because they don't want to feed into that overindulgence of who pays more for an ad and
Right.
who gets the last slot. And
Another freaking celebrity gets to walk up on stage and talk about how they're making money. Like I don't care. Like you get to hobble on stage in a cast, and the actual voice actors of games and the actual developers of games can't be up on stage more than 10 seconds before the playing off music starts. Give me a break.
Well, talking about the celebrities, I actually didn't mind Keanu Reeves that much, but Anthony Mackie coming out, the Falcon, this year was so cringe.
It was
man.
extremely cringe. Him being like, "Oh, I got fans. You stop talking. You stop talking. You stop talking." It was beyond cringe.
It sounded like he was trying to have another Keanu Reeves moment. Because, like, what was the moment with Keanu Reeves where it's like, no, you're great or whatever? Like, it was a
But
big
that's
meme.
the thing is like Keanu Reeves is that beloved.
Yeah.
But Mackie, not so much. The way that I perceived it, it kind of like blew up in his face. But I don't think that he probably perceived it that way.
No, it was cringe, and I'm just like, dude, this is the guy from 8 Mile needs to get off the stage because this is it did feel like an overindulgence, and this is what people are seeing as the replacement for E3, and to me, this ain't it, man.
No.
Like, because what are they gonna do? Like, if you want to add more games and more reveals, you're gonna have to extend the show to also give the developers and the voice actors their due diligence, and then give them their credit, but then it'll be way too long. But then let's give them more time, then you're going to have a 10-minute speech. So it's like, where are we going to find this middle ground here? And is this sustainable? Like, I bet you now you can return to this video later. I swear that next year's ratings are going to be significantly lower than this one because of how bad this show is perceived.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, just kind of like overindulging. I mean, it really seemed like they were trying to like pull all the stops, and in doing so they kind of moved away from the heart of what this was actually meant for, and that was celebrating games. It's meant to be giving kudos to the games that deserve respect. It's meant to really separate the top games from the rest of the pack and really line them all up and be like, Spider-Man 2, we enjoyed in different ways. meme probably more so than you, but like showing that like even some people who thought that was game of the year, showing them, well, hey, well, what about this game? What about how
Yeah.
well this game did? And really trying to keep everything in that objective light. And I think that for the most part, I agree with all the decisions of the best games of the year. But again, like you said, if you're not going to give the people who put years of work into making that moment happen, if you're not even going to give them the time of day, what are we doing? Why does this even exist? And if you want to have more game announcements there has to be a middle ground. Like you said, this isn't it. So 3 hours of a show probably already needs to be cut down. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, just much more of the people who are actually getting awards, that needs to be the center of the stage. So if you need to make this, sell it in a way to these developers, like if you want to be on the Game Awards show and show your trailer, you're going to have to fight for that spot, not extend the show by another hour and a half so that way it can all be crammed in. There needs to be a difference. That's going to make sense.
To those people who don't like the Game Awards, I have to say that the trade show isn't dead, just E3. Like,
correct.
If you don't like the game show, don't support it. There are other trade shows that you can look and stream on the internet. Gamescom is out there, PAX East, BlizzCon. There's definitely a place for you to see these reveals in the places that they're meant to be revealed at, you know?
Exactly. And that's the thing is, instead of having one ginormous conglomerate of all of electronics, we have so many niches becoming like cult followings now. My wife and I were fortunate enough a while back to attend a VR convention in Orlando, and it was so fun. I got to see at the time one of the newer models of VR before it actually hit retailers. My wife got to sit in like one of the most state-of-the-art VR racers because she loves racing games. And so like that was a really, really cool experience. I got to, I had already played Beat Saber a little bit with friends. So I actually drew a crowd at the time because Beat Saber was so new. And I was like I was only playing on like hard, but like people, I was able to showcase like how the game was working. And so that was really, really cool. So those types of things, like you said, they exist. If you are a nerd who wants to go to anime stuff, you know you're going to go to MegaCon. So if you want to attend stuff about Legend of Zelda, and if you want to like attend stuff that has to do with Kingdom Hearts, like there's probably a convention surrounding it. So if that's the media that you want to support, that you want to consume, it still exists.
And I think that's a healthy thing for the gaming industry as a whole. I think we should continue to support these trade shows because in a world after the pandemic, we do need to come together and see real people. Like there's only so much you can see behind a screen and so much excitement you can have. And like I said earlier, the Nintendo Directs are a masterclass of the hype through this medium, but the hype of being in person is going to be something that I wish I had.
Yeah.
I wish I could have gone to an E3. I was too young for that. And by the time I was old enough to go, your boy was in college and he was broke as heck. So like, I'm not going to go and spend thousands of dollars to go to E3.
Right.
But you know, I will do that for Pokemon Go.
And we have.
But go out, see your fellow gamers, see the people that love what you love, man, because that's gonna keep the community alive, and that's gonna keep gaming in a nice, healthy spot for the next generation coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, man, there's something that's able to be achieved on a whole different level that when you watch something on YouTube and you get hyped for it, it still just leaves you longing for that in-person experience. Being hyped with like your friend on the couch, your wife on the couch, it's a whole different thing to be in a room full of people all getting hyped about something at the same time. So it's a whole different experience. And you know, nowadays we have other ways to support this too. We have podcasters like us, we have YouTubers who we kind of like start dissecting these topics. We start going over what we just saw and discussing like what it means to us, like what we're hyped about, and kind of even prolonging the hype. And that's a big part of the culture now too, but it's still not the announcement. We are not the ones bringing to you like the newest news. We're not bringing to you leaks. We're discussing what needs to be talked about in the gaming community, right?
Yes.
So that's a big part of the community, but these are the ways that gamers expect to get their information. It's the way that, you know, they might look at a Google link that says like, oh, new Zelda game announced, and be like, well, I can't wait to see what Matt and Lewis think about this.
Yes. So thank you for listening to us, because we're going to tell you everything we think about every game ever.
And with that, please like and subscribe, share us with your friends, and tell us what you think about this topic. We created Lobby Up to celebrate the games we love and the games that inspire you. That will always be the centerpiece of this podcast. The phrase Lobby Up directly refers to the times you get together with friends to have fun and do something you love. So thanks for lobbying up with us today.
See you guys.